I could call tonight's meeting to order. Kathleen Allen. Here. James Bell.
Here.
Amy Callan. Brian Chedney.
Here.
Tom Chapa.
Here.
Brandon Legault.
Here.
Samuel Tripp.
Here.
Elise Menicha. If you would all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we will offer the floor to the public, and I have Jim McKenzie signed up. If you'd like to come up, Jim.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate your time. I just wanted to talk about something real quick that I sent each of you an email about not too long ago. I was able to speak with the administration. Very much want to thank them for their time to spend with me. I'm very happy to hear that we're going to be adding some more phys ed teachers, because I think that's something we really need to do, as well as social workers, because I think mental health is something that we really need to address, because sometimes things are harder at home and we can be a support service. But I also do firmly believe that class size really matters in education. I'm an educator myself, family of educators, a lot of my friends are educators, and my children are in these schools. I think class size matters. My daughter mentions to me about hers. I don't think it's provoked, because I don't sit around the table and talk about these kinds of things. This is something that she recognizes. I know that a class, at least in my opinion, of 25 in the kindergarten is a lot when you've got a single teacher. Classes of 28 are a lot. Now, I know differing opinions are out there. It's not everybody's on board that it actually helps to reduce class sizes. But as some of the information I sent you, I do believe it matters. I think if you ask the teachers, I think it matters. So I'm asking you to find a way to please help reduce class sizes. If not, add extra help. I mean, if you've got a class of 28, then a teaching assistant, maybe from 9 to 2 or something, is going to help that classroom environment. Because I do believe the mental health is important, but getting through the class day is also important. So I know I sent you the email, but based on minutes of meetings and having people come out and talk and participate, I wanted to come out and let that be known in person. I also thank you for all of your work. I do ask that, and I know this has been read in some minutes, bringing back and making sure that the Community Relations Committee keeps on. I know that's something we've discussed. Also, I haven't seen anything posted about a budget committee where you're working with the administration. I would also hope that would be open to the public to be able to come and listen to some of the intricacies that I know can't be posted. You're not going to buy a full front page on the Pal Times to get a line-by-line item of the budget. But having the opportunity for the public who cares to come out, listen to the discussion, and add their 2 cents, I think would be worthwhile. So again, I thank you all for your work for our community. And I'll just end it with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Board of Education. That the Board of Education approve the contract for the Board of Education Superintendent Retreat as presented. Is there any discussion? Motion? Okay.
Excuse me. We started talking about this back in November.
Just to switch.
Thank you. We started talking about this back in November. At the time, I thought it was a good idea. But now we're 3 months from the end of the year. The board may change next year. I just don't think it's worth spending the money. I would much rather have us plan a retreat in July or August after the board election. And if new board members happen to come aboard, then this retreat would be, I think, valuable to them, as it is valuable to us to do that. But I just think, with 3 months left to go, I just don't think it's
I kind of agree with that. I think that there was a lot of conversation about the need for a retreat for the board and superintendent to come together in November and December. Thought it was critical then. But now as we're entering March and spring and budget season, it seems a little late to kind of spend that money now. It might make a lot more sense to spend it in the new fiscal and board year.
Yeah, I agree with Sam and Dean. It's too late in the season, right? I think we were talking about it earlier, and I think we should have probably moved on it earlier. But 3 months left with the board changing, I think there's, if the dynamics of it change, then we maybe should look at it as something that we start off right at the beginning of the new board.
I absolutely support it. I've indicated that for a long time. There's a need to have that kind of work with an outside person to facilitate it, but it's about bringing a group together at the onset of the relationship, and I don't think that's not.
I agree.
Would the board like to
Can vote?
vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Should probably
Second?
call the roll, Karen? Is that the only way you do it?
I can, if it's requested.
No, I think you make, there's a resolution to approve it. We can go with that and just call the roll and yes or no.
So yes or
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep the same resolution,
Yeah.
just yes or no.
Yeah, keep the same resolution.
Dr. Gui, you can also table that until a later date.
I think we've got at least
Okay.
4 members.
Could I have a second on that, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. No,
Wait, no.
You gotta vote. You gotta vote now.
as presented.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Aye.
Aye. I oppose.
Sorry.
Yes.
Next, we will move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Gui?
Thank you. Several things tonight. The first of which is student recognition. We have a lot of student recognition this meeting, as well as the next meeting. We're going to recognize a bunch of student musicians tonight. Mr. Dumas is here. I thank you for coming as a music team leader. And at our next meeting, we're going to have a series of student recognitions around athletics. But for tonight, we're going to recognize a group of students that represented the Oswego City School District and Oswego High School music program at Allstate. And I can tell you as a musician myself, participation in Allstate Chorus Band Orchestra is a very, very big accomplishment. And it's not only a tribute to our music staff, but it certainly is a tribute to the talent of our students that we see time and time again. So I'd just like to announce the names of the students that we're recognizing tonight, read one sample of the certificate that they will receive, and then have them all come up and have a photo with Mrs. Callanan and me and Mr. Dumas. So the students that we're recognizing tonight, I'm going to name their name, call their names, and identify the performing group that they will be with in Allstate. We have Alyssa Adner, who will perform with Treble Chorus, Andrew Bornheimer, who we know well from this year's musical and musicals past. He will be with mixed chorus. Daniel Emmons, mixed chorus. Shanika Laveras, treble chorus. Liam Toby, mixed chorus. And Jack Dodds, symphonic band. If you would all come forward with Mr. Dumas. Going to read one sample of the certificate of recognition. This one happens to be Jack Dodds, but they're all similar wording. The Oswego City School District recognizes and appreciates Jack Dodds, Euphonium Symphonic Band, for your tremendous talent and accomplishment as you represented your school and the Oswego City School District for the second year. Your participation in the Conference All-State is a credit to your dedication to your craft. It brings recognition to you, your teacher, the Oswego High School, and the Oswego City School District. Your parents, teachers, and the Oswego City School District Administration and Board of Education congratulate you. I have a series of other announcements, but next, tonight is the first portion presentation of the 1920 school district operational budget. And tonight we're going to be presenting the capital portion of that budget.
Dean? Oh, you're over there. Oh.
Here.
Just quickly, just to kind of address Mr. McKenzie's, some of his questions, can you just kind of run through the budget process so that he understands?
Yes.
That everybody understands how that works?
The budget process works this way. In 3 subsequent board meetings, we present component portions, the 3 essential component portions of our operational budget, starting with... Is it working? The first is capital, and capital covers buildings and grounds, maintenance, and also debt service. We also have the administrative portion of the operational budget, and then we have the instructional portion of the operational budget. And we lay them out in component parts in 3 subsequent meetings that lead up to a public hearing. And at that point, we present the budget in its totality. And the reason we do it that way is because we're not always completely sure on our revenues until much, much later in the process. Always the governor releases state aid figures early, and it's particularly early this year, along with a very kind of discouraging message. But we also know that historically, the legislative budget runs are somewhat, if not significantly higher than the budget figures that are put out by the governor. So although we present some initial some money items to you from the governor's release, we're always optimistic that as the next weeks and months transpire, that there's better news to come. And we really haven't been disappointed in the past about that. The legislature is working hard. New York State School Boards works very hard on this. The New York State Council of School Superintendents is always working legislatively to influence the amount of state aid. And we've had a lot of conversations over the years about the impact of state aid, the negative impact of state aid on Oswego, and the impact of our nuclear power plants in terms of our general aid. The fact that it makes our district look more wealthy than it really is. We've been seeing a shift in that over the last 2 years. Last year we saw an increase in our OCS aid that we didn't anticipate, and this year certainly in our building aid. So that's the way it rolls out. And tonight's portion is on the capital portion of the budget. That's the portion that we always roll out first. The weeks and months that lead up to these presentations include meetings with stakeholder groups, principals, department heads, and they create wish lists that are prioritized, so that when we finally see what those numbers look like, then we have to make some difficult decisions about the operational budget. It's also important to point out probably that there's 2 portions of reporting. The first one is the budget, which is an estimate. And then after that is the actual spending. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the presentation tonight. So there's the estimate and then there's the actual. And there are some impacts of the new ESSA legislation, Every Student Succeeds Act, that is impacting our budget development and reporting now, as well as some other things that are related to policy and politics. So tonight we're going to start talking about the capital project, the capital portion of the budget, which, as I indicated earlier, is buildings and grounds, maintenance, as well as our debt service. Is there something that you want me to add, Kathleen?
I was referring to the budget process. What he was talking about is when people can comment on what.
Yep. There's a few opportunities for people to share thoughts about the budget. One would be to come to the mic by signing up during the public session of the meeting. If someone hears something tonight, for example, that they want a question, they can, as Jim indicated, you can call me, email, or come see me anytime. But you could come to the mic and ask for clarification at the following meeting. The other real significant opportunity, though, is the the budget forum. We have a public budget forum, which is required by law, and we do that, and it's a much more comprehensive presentation. We get into greater detail at that point, and people have an opportunity to engage with me and the board about the budget at that point. So on the first slide, the overview slide, there's a few things that we want to talk about. The first is that we know that the capital portion of the budget is really about operational. And that's also about debt service. And that debt service impacts our budget significantly. And we know that we have some debt falling off. And we're about to incur some new debt around our capital project that we're excited about. But the other one is tax cap. Your tax cap is created, and that is the amount of money that a district is allowed to go out and ask taxpayers to levy the budget by giving certain amounts of tax dollars to support the operational budget of a school district. We've been hanging a little bit over 2% for the last 2 or 3 years. However, we did submit our tax cap paperwork to the state about 2 weeks early. It was due on March 1st. And the indication this year is that our tax cap is only at 0.65%. That means we can only ask taxpayers to support our levy at 0.65 of 1%. So that's a hit. Unless we wanted to go out for a supermajority, which, as you know from the capital project and from previous budgets, is 60% voter approval plus 1 vote. We've enjoyed that level of support over the last 4 years, but that's not necessarily something we might want to risk on. But until we see all the numbers and the dust starts to settle and we prioritize our budget, we'll know whether there's a necessity to ask for more than the tax cap. The next slide certainly is not unfamiliar to you. We always talk about our district vision and mission statement. This guides the decisions that we make. We always try to keep cuts to instruction and operation as far away from students as we can because we're student-centered. The next slide is the reality at state level. And that is the Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, has stated that there is a $2 billion budget shortfall at the state level. It's actually $2.3 billion, which will have a significant impact on school aid. We'll see smaller amounts of state aid we anticipate and is suggested in the governor's runs. So that will have to be reconciled with the things that we wish for and that we think we need for instruction in our school district. In fact, he referred to this budget shortfall as serious as a heart attack, and I have to agree with him when I saw that number. The next is ESSA, and we've been talking quite a bit about ESSA over the last few months. ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, is legislation that puts some requirements on districts for the way that they budget. And 2 of the most significant demands on school districts is that by the summer of 2019, our estimated budget, which is your operating budget, it's a number that we put to voters to support it. When we do budget presentations, we share examples of things that we wish to do in that budget, but really the voters are approving a number. By the summer of 2019, we have to do what's called school building budgeting in terms of our estimated budget. By the summer of 2020, we have to do our actuals, and the actuals are the real spending. What did you really spend in your budget for both revenue and expenditures? So what that really means is that the instructional portion of the budget has to be budgeted by employee, including federal funds. And those federal funds have to be above and beyond their building level local budget share, which means if you have a school that receives some federal dollars because of Title I or 2A, or they are a poverty school, we have to be able to show that there's equity of financials and opportunity school by school in the dollars. So if they receive title funding, that has to be above their per pupil allocation for instruction based on the school size, and we have to show that in our budgeting. It's a huge budgeting change for us, and something that we've been grappling with for the last 4 to 6, 8 weeks. So the next slide is our preliminary state aid. These are the indications that came from the governor's run, and I'll go through those. So there's 3 columns. The first is the type of 4 columns. The first is the type of aid. Then we're showing the 1920 proposed budget aid from the governor, and then last year, or our current year's budget, aid by category, and then the increase in or decrease. The first, as you know, because we talk about it every year, is foundation aid. Foundation aid is the most significant aid because that's the portion of money that the state gives us that we can pretty much do what we want with. So that's the most helpful aid. It's not targeted aid at any particular purpose. This year we're seeing $336,000 increase in our foundation aid, which is significantly lower than the increases that we've enjoyed in the past few years. Next is BOCES aid. You can see that we have an increase in just under $1 million in BOCES aid. Your BOCES aid is indicative of the types of BOCES programming that you contract for in the previous year. So you can recall that in this year's budget, we added a number of full-day CTE programs, we added some alternative education programs, and we added additional spots in our New Visions programs. And so that's paying us back now with some additional state aid under the BOCES lines. So it really reflects additional services. The next 2 lines are high cost aid and private excess cost aid, and those are both associated with special education programming. You can see that we have a decrease in high cost aid of about $63,000, and that really is indicative of the fact that we lost 1 high ticket student, and so the aid has dropped because we had 1 student, I believe, in a pretty expensive alternative program that isn't with us. The next is the private excess cost aid that is similar to the high cost aid, except for these are for alternative educational programs that are off-site. So this might be a student that requires, that on the spectrum of autism is very needy in terms of services, and that student might have reached an age where a residential facility would be required in the IEP, and the district would be responsible for paying for those placements. The next is hardware and technology. We see a little increase in hardware and technology. The next is library books and software. We're seeing a $112,000 increase in that state aid, which we're very happy about. The next is transportation aid, a small increase in transportation aid. And then the next one that's really significant is, it's good and bad, but we have a decrease in our building aid. And this is because we have some debt falling off. And so it's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. We have debt falling off, which allowed us to incur some new debt for the capital project. And Nancy and I have talked about for many years, it's important to keep your debt your borrowing limits very stable, so you don't have high changes in this particular state aid. But that debt fall off is, one example would be our energy performance contract. That debt is falling off. So there's been some decrease in that aid. So you can see that we're slightly up, about $684,000 increase in our state aid according to the governor's first run.
Do you expect any of this to change?
I expect it to change when the legislature gets their hands on it. Yeah. There was a lot of advocacy today. I've been in Albany since Sunday. I returned this afternoon. There's been a lot of advocacy about state aid. There always has been. There's always groups of Oswego County chiefs and chiefs from other regions across New York State that always are advocating for increases in state aid, not only through the legislative process, but also in meetings with the commissioner as well as the governor. We have advocacy groups that work for NISCUS, which is the New York State Council of School Superintendents. We know that the New York State School Boards Association is advocating for increases in state aid regularly. So we have a lot of people that are working on and advocating for us. The difficult part difficulty that we have right now, and we know this from personal meetings with our legislators, is that we have a heavy Democratic New York State legislature, and we're a very Republican Central New York community. So they don't have a lot of leverage once they get down to Albany, but they're fighting for us. A lot of money goes to New York City.
Sorry, Ms. Hunt.
Sure. Thanks. A lot of New York State aid is going to New York City and the big 5 school districts: Rochester, Yonkers, Buffalo, Syracuse, and New York. So the next slide is our preliminary facilities budget. And remember, this is a working document. We're working and we're looking at our revenues and we're looking at our expenditures day to day. Things change and we're hopeful. But our first glance at our facilities budget shows an increase of $88,000 in the area of salary, and I'll talk about where that comes from in a little bit. Some is a natural increase in salaries of our staff based on collective bargaining, but also maybe some additional staff. The next is contractual, and this is a decrease, actually. We're starting to see some benefits of the sale of the Ed Center, and this dollar amount is reflective of some utility cost decreases from the sale of the Ed Center. BOCES, this is our risk assessment COSER. There's an increase in that line in our expenditure because there's been a request by Mr. Crisafulli, our facilities director, to increase that level of service to bring someone in from city risk assessment into our district 1 day a week, full time, to help us get that work done. Supplies up slightly, $13,000. And then a pretty large significant equipment jump from $85,000 to $255,472 because of some new equipment that David has requested that I will outline in a minute. So the next slide is building debt service. And as I said, facilities, buildings and grounds, maintenance, and debt service are portions of this particular segment of the budget. The first column shows the projects that we currently are bonded on. The next is the initial borrowing amount, the amount that we borrowed initially for each of these projects. And then the next 2 columns show the principal and interest that are due on these bonds this year that will be built into this budget. The first is the 2006 OHS HVAC project, which was a very large heating and ventilation and air conditioning project here at Oswego High School at $1.4 million. This year's principal payment on that is $130 and $56.88 in interest. The next is the KPS Fitzhugh Park window project from 2006. That's when we replaced the windows at Fitzhugh Park and Kingsford Park initially. That was a $2.2 million borrow. And this year's principal and interest payments are $200,000 and $8,000 for interest. The next is Excel projects. Excel is a funding source that pays for lots of different capital projects that we've done across the district, but one real significant portion of that line would be the 2010 renovations at the 5 elementary schools and the middle school that added single points of entry and had a lot of work around cameras and school safety and security. And so that we have a total borrowing amount on Excel projects of $54,265,000. This year's payment is $3,335,000 with interest at $1.1 million. Next is the May 2012 referendum, which were roof replacements at several schools, as well as central air conditioning installed at Charles Riley, Minetto, and Layton. And next is BOCES project. That's originally our share. Our local share was $6,800,000. Our payment this year is $430,000 with $132,000 in interest, and that's Oswego's component district share of the capital project at City BOCES when they did a renovation and addition. So we're still paying for our local portion of that of that project for BOCES. So we have an increase in $1.8 million this year. Next is bus debt service. As you know, we have a cyclical replacement plan on our bus fleet. We've talked significantly over the years about the fact that we keep our maintenance staff low and our repair costs low because we keep a very, very safe and active bus fleet by replacing buses and retiring new buses to auction each year. This shows the original bond from 15-16 until the current year. So you can see that what the principal and interest is on each of those borrowing years. Someone's going to ask the question about what about buses this year? And the answer is yes, it's coming in the next presentation. But yes, we will be asking for the purchase of additional buses this year. We haven't landed on the number that we need yet, but that will be reflected in the next presentation.
Dean, are we not reimbursed from the state for some of these bus purchases?
Nancy?
No, we are.
Reimbursement under
We are-
capital, yeah.
We are reimbursed.
Through our transportation aid for all of our bus purchases.
Where
portion.
Where does that show up? Where-
It shows up in the foundation aid, and it's, the transportation aid is, it's, if you look at the governor's run again, it's right before the building aid, and that's where we get reimbursed.
The next slide indicates our total debt service, and this is a summary of the previous debt service slides. One is our building debt service, and the other is bus debt service. This year, our total principal on both bus debt and building debt is $5.4 million, interest at 1.8. Principal and interest combined. That's the number that would be built into the 1920 budget that would be due to bonding. So our total capital budget for facilities, there's a 5% increase, $244,000. Debt service, there's a decrease of 8%. Our debt service total is $7.2 million as opposed to 7.8 last year, which is a 3% reduction in our capital budget anticipation as of today. So a smaller. That's largely due to debt fall off, as you can see. Next would be the asks page, and these are the priority items that David Crisafulli put forward after conversations with his staff. He meets with Nancy and Heidi. They talk about things that are critical for him, and they're in there's a prioritized list. He's asking for a second shift custodian at Oswego High School /district. Not sure where the need would land, but we're anticipating a cost of $43,000. Under equipment, we'll be asking for a replacement of a 2004 dump truck at the cost of $48,951. The replacement of a 2005 Ford pickup at the cost of $37,577. And the replacement of 3 panel transit vans that are all 2007 at $83,944. We're also asking for an increase in our risk coaster with city BOCES. They do a lot of paperwork and reporting paperwork for us, as well as keep an eye on right to know things and a bunch of other stuff. And David thinks that having someone in the district full-time 1 day a week through that BOCES coaster would be very, very helpful to our facilities and buildings and grounds. So that would be an increase of new additions of $228,472. But remember, that still puts us 3% lower in the capital budget portion of this year's budget. So you can see the debt service is very helpful to us. Next thing that we're waiting on as we,
One second, Dean, I got a
yeah, go ahead.
question. So, did you say the second shift custodian was in middle school?
High school.
High school.
/district. Dave hasn't landed on exactly how he thinks it should be best allocated. So we're indicating it's high school, district, we'll know more as we get closer to.
And what's changed for that?
Dave, do you want to address that? Yeah, I did.
But what before the thought was, a lot of the custodians, when they start out, the sub-custodians, the head custodians all go home during the day and that, there's no training, really. I mean, they go in, you show them an area in that, and this person would be a district-wide custodian. You travel around, they do training, you check out areas, they'd be able to help out if we're short-staffed, because we can't always get subs. Part of it will be, because they would work the second shift. And part of it also will be with a construction project coming up. You have to move stuff, staging areas and stuff like that, and they'd be able to coordinate some of it with the contractors.
So the next step certainly is, over the next weeks or month, we wait very patiently for the legislative budget run to be released. And we really just continue to hope for the best, that we have a significant increase in school district aid coming out of the budget. Next would be the administrative component portion of the budget, which will be presented in 2 weeks. And then after that would be the instructional component of the budget that leads up to the budget hearing, which is an all-inclusive, more comprehensive presentation on the entire budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Guai, would you have any other items for tonight?
Yes, I do. I wanted to just remind the audience as well as the board, you received an automated message. We've exhausted all 6 of our scheduled snow days for the district, and we're trying to be proactive in being prepared for tomorrow and days to come. So we have changed our March 18th staff development day is now a full instructional day for students. And the April 22nd date, staff will work on that day. That buys us some insurance relative to weather if we were to need another snow day. Beyond that, then we would start tapping into vacations, and hopefully we won't get to that point, and maybe next week, spring will come. But, so that's what that's about. That's the driving factor there. And most districts, most component districts in the county made a similar move this week to provide a safety net. Next is the district survey. Survey letters. We talked about this 2 meetings ago. This has been something that Carrie and I have been working on. Carrie's been spending a lot of time on webinars and working with the state. As you know, we're a pilot district in the New York State survey, which started with the U.S. Department of Education and was adopted by the New York State Department of Education, and we were selected to be a partner in the pilot of this survey. Now, the survey letter will be released on Monday. This survey is an anonymous controlled survey, and we will be asking the survey participants to answer questions about school discipline, student support, student engagement, safety conditions in each of the schools, and to just gather perspectives of not only students, but parents, teachers, administrators, and non-instructional staff. The directions will go out in a letter to parents on Monday and also be articulated to the district staff, and with directions on how to enter the portal in order to complete the survey, and then we'll use that survey data to generate information for our district as we plan for moving forward. The survey window is March 11th through 29th, and we'll be communicating out to all stakeholders starting on Monday. Carrie, did I forget anything?
Jamie's a really big part of this.
Yeah, sorry, Jamie. Jamie's really, actually has been. Jamie's been working on how to, on the tech end of this, to how to make this thing really work for us and to keep the cost down. This is an exciting opportunity for us to be part of this pilot. Next is, I wanted to remind the audience, if you're still here at the end of the meeting, which I'm sure you will be, after a very brief executive session, we're going to be having the grand open house for the new Oswego High School main office, which is something that's been in the works for a few years. We're very proud of this office, and there'll be a small reception immediately following this meeting. I wanted to put kudos out to Lisa Marie Carter. Lisa Marie Carter is our Director of Educational Services in our district, Special Educational Services. She's been working very hard over the last month. We were engaged in a Medicaid audit. Lisa and her staff worked tirelessly on this Medicaid audit to provide the required documents to interact with those auditors that were in our district. And the great news is that there were no significant findings, no penalties, no fines, no corrective action. So thank you, Lisa. And finally, New York State Education Department is here this week at the Oswego Middle School, working with a team with Mary Beth and a team of her staff and district staff on a school review. And those are exhausting. Mary Beth has had a school review before. We certainly have had district reviews by state ed. We've had New York State reviews at Oswego High School, at Layton, at Bitchie Park. We're pretty good at it. But it's always stressful, and there's a lot of appreciation that has to go out to Mary Beth, Heidi, Mary Beth's team. Parents are scheduled to come in tomorrow for focus groups. Is that correct, Mary Beth? Yep. We've been under accountability before in Oswego. It's not something that we're not familiar with. And we enter an age of accountability status with a perspective that it's an opportunity for improvement. We don't point fingers and we don't make excuses. We dig in and we always come out on the other side better than we were before. So I thank all those that are participating in that review.
Next on the agenda is committee discussion. Would any committees have anything to share tonight?
The only thing I have to talk about in regards to the committee is Tom and I have finally agreed upon a date for our community relations next committee meeting. So that will be on March 11th at 5:30. So obviously the public is welcome to attend, and we've reached out to our committee members, and so far it looks like most everybody can attend. So I think that will give us a direction as to where we're going for the rest of the year. So that's good news on that end. Anybody else?
Tom, with the facilities committee, we're asking, we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, at 8 o'clock. Could the facilities committee come and we can start having some of those conversations about this most recent capital project?
Thursday.
So Thursday, 8 a.m. here? Yep. Thursday, is that the 11th? 14. Yep. Yep. Okay.
I'm sorry, Dr. Dewey, where will that be held?
Well, the planning meetings for the new capital project are held in my office. But we typically would have the facilities committee meetings at the high school in the conference room off the library. We'll send an invite out on the location. We already had a previously scheduled capital project team meeting on that day, and it makes sense to bring the facilities committee in then, instead of having Craig and his folks come twice. So we'll nail down the schedule and send that out to you.
Any other items? Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. 2 items, minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of February 19, 2019, and the Special Education Board report of March 5th, 2019. Would there be any questions? Motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next on the agenda is curriculum.
A, independent athlete, permission for a Fulton City School District student, senior student, to play as an independent athlete with our Oswego girls varsity golf team for the spring season. There's no cost to the district. Fulton will incur any cost that there is. And I called, talked to Rhonda, and she said really it's only the uniform that would be a cost that Fulton would have to cover. And she said there is also no Oswego students would be harmed by
Right.
allowing the student to play.
I just had a quick question on that, Carrie. So when it says independent athlete, does that mean that she's representing still
Fulton.
Fulton? She's
Yes.
not playing as a Oswego?
Correct. She's playing
Okay.
for Fulton.
All right, yeah, because my daughter came home and was saying that to us, and then I read the back of it, and I was like, wait a minute, does that make sense? So that is true, so she's representing Fulton. Because they don't have a team, is that,
Correct.
okay, all right.
Rhonda referred to her as a team of one.
Team of one.
Right.
They just participate with us
Right.
for the logistics, but she
Her score goes
participates
towards,
as a Fulton athlete.
okay.
Sometimes you see that we will merge students who don't have,
Right.
they can't field the team, and you'll see those cross, and we did it with girls hockey,
Right.
but with a student of one who had an interest in representing her own school district, but could enjoy the practice, you know, with a team.
Right.
This seemed like a good
Yeah,
arrangement.
no, I thought that was cool, because with the hockey, they still represent Oswego.
Correct.
Like, that's what,
Right.
this is different, this is.
That's how this is different.
Right, okay, all right, thank you.
Could I have a motion, please? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next will be personnel.
A, administrative recommendation, change in status for Jamie Sykett, Director of Instructional Technology, Network Information and Multimedia Systems, effective 7/1/19. He'll go from the 11-month position we had previously approved and revert to the 12-month position.
Any questions? Motion? Brian, second?
Second.
Amy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B, extra compensatory recommendation for a chairperson as an alternate chairperson for our CSE meetings, Narmi and Hampshire.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C, support staff recommendation, leave of absence, Michelle Morrow, school bus driver, effective March 1st through August 1st.
Any questions? Motion? Brian?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Brandon? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
D, support staff recommendation, change in status, Christina DeStevens, library clerk. At the last meeting, we had put her forward as a permanent and then realized that she's one of our library clerks who still needs to take the exam when it's offered. So she needs, it's a kind of a strange category of she has completed her probationary period but can't be moved forward to permanent until she takes the exam. So she's still provisional until the test is taken. And Sarah Schultz, a custodian, that's a transfer from KPS staff, yes.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll make the motion.
Tom? Second?
Second.
Brandon? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Support staff recommendation, permanent appointments for those completing their probationary period and who have successfully passed the civil service exam. Faith O'Brien, library clerk, she's split between the high school and the middle school. Ian Roberry, senior maintenance worker, and Mackenzie Verberg, library clerk at FLS.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Amy? Second?
I'll second.
Tom? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And F, our substitute and temporary employees.
Any questions? Motion? Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Tom? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll move to finance, please.
A is an agreement with CBIZ Valuation for $1,600. This is for them to do all of our reports for our year-end audit for our asset valuation.
Is this part of the tagging process we referred to before?
It is.
Okay. So this will cover it, or will there be additional
No, what they'll do is, I have to work with them this year to get them to print out tags for us so that we can put it on, so that it will cover that corrective action that we have to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
B is an agreement with the Center of Career and Community Education. This is for adult literacy work for $25,200. This is actually for our task program for the jail.
Any questions? Motion? Brian, second? Brandon? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
C is just it's an update from the last capital order change orders that I brought to the board. Two of the ones that you had approved have fallen off. We are no longer doing the mechanical for $350 where there was a change order to have a sink replaced. That has fallen off. And also there was a relocation of an airform for $3,000 that has come off the change order. So those are change order decreases, but one of them, corridor wall painting, that has increased by $110. So those were the only changes from the original list of change orders.
It's just the 110 on the 1110?
Yes.
Just that portion.
Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
F is for the board to accept a donation from Donors Choose for Charles E. Riley for $492.68 for the purchase of Chromebooks for Allison Meeker's second grade classroom.
Any questions? Motion? Second? Second. Amy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did
I miss one?
D&E, change in status and first week, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Field trips.
I totally went over them. D is the acceptance of a grant award for Target field trips in the amount of $700, and that is for Frederick Layton Elementary School.
Any questions? Motion? Amy? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And E, which I'm glad this is last because they're here to present the check, a donation from the Enactus Club for $516.33. That is to be presented to the Oswego High School Student Council.
Any questions? Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the Enactus Club will.
We have representatives of the Enactus Club, and we have representatives from the Student Council, the officers.
Just a moment.
Hi. So, as you know, we're from Enactus, and we worked with the Student Council and Shell's Bake Shop, which is right in Now Commons, to raise this money at our Oswego hockey game, right outside the game. And we raised $516.33, which is great. So, yeah.
It was great working with the Student Council and with Shell's Bake Shop. We've been working with Shell's for a while now, and it was great to do something to help the community like this.
Next on the agenda is the student representative. Would she have anything tonight? Yep, sure.
I know that spring sports are well underway now.
thankfully the snow is gone, so most of us get to get on the fields. And last week, the senior trip occurred, so I know for at least the people in my room, that was a well-needed de-stressing week, so that was nice. That's all I got.
Next on the agenda is items from the board. Would any members have any items tonight?
I have a couple of announcements. Let's see. I sent an email to board members. Hopefully, I will hear back from some of you. The spring school safety event, which is held at SUNY Oswego, we were sent invitations. I wasn't sure. Did everybody get those? Or did just you all? Okay, all right. Because, like I said earlier, Tom and I had chosen the date of March 11th for our Community Relations Committee meeting, and then they came out with the invitation after. So where I would have loved to attend that, we already have this engagement, so I'm hoping that we have another board member who can attend this event. The second thing is on behalf of Oswego County School Board Association, I wanted to let everybody know, and I'll read the announcement, and then if we can figure out a way within our district to get this information again out to parents and students in each one of the schools. What our school board, Oswego County School Board Association, is doing for the entire Oswego County is we have secured Daniel Baldwin to come and speak on addiction. And this is going to be held at in Fulton in their theater. I'll just read the little bit here. It says, Daniel Baldwin knows the dangers of addiction. The actor, producer, and director has lived through drug dependency and recovery. His passion now is helping families struggling with addiction. Baldwin will host a discussion titled Opioid Crisis in Central New York, Building Awareness. The event will be held on March 27th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the G. Ray Bodley High School. Drug overdoses are the leading cause of death for Americans under the age of 50. In 2016, more Americans died of drug overdose than died in the entirety of the Vietnam War. Baldwin's presentation is free, and it's open to the entire Oswego County community, especially high school students and their parents. So we really want to get as many people to attend this as possible. So if everybody could help spread the word, and like I said, on our half, whether it was a robocall or letters sent home with students or however, it's March 27th. So I think that would be great. So that was, I think those are my only two announcements. Anybody else?
I just have a quick question, just kind of on what the email about the safety thing. Dean,
Yeah.
who is our safety? We have a safety committee.
Yeah.
I remember you mentioned a while back.
It's Nancy's committee, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, who's on that committee and how often do they meet?
Nancy?
So we have a principal on the committee, and the principals have chosen one or two representatives from their buildings. It could be a custodian, could be a teacher that's on the committee. We have transportation, we have facilities, food service, and I have asked a member of NYSER, which is our insurance company, risk management section, to come in and be a part of that committee as well. And then we'll bring people in on an ad hoc basis. We just haven't had that first meeting yet for this year, and we're just a little behind the eight ball. But once this budget is completed, I probably within the next month will have our first meeting.
Well, I mean, is that symposium that Amy was mentioning, is that something that some of those people would be, or did that go out to the whole district, or was that just strictly board members?
I think it only, as far as I know, I believe it only came to board members. Did they go to principals?
I think the people who have attended the events in the past got an invitation.
Did you sign it?
Because they all go every spring.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that board members.
Is it the one that we just went to? Is it the one we just
Like
went
they
to?
just have their name on a list.
Yeah.
So, no, that's a good question, Kathleen. Is there, could we get a list of who the members are, and will there be a board representative on the committee?
Wow, sure.
It's important probably to
Yeah.
point out too that every building in our district has a building level safety committee. And that committee is the makeup is similar. You have classroom teachers, you have support staff, you have non-instructional, you have a custodian, you have a nurse, the principal, and they talk about building level safety issues quite regularly.
I'd be willing to be the board member on that. Unless
So do
everybody
they
else-
meet on a monthly basis, the building level safety?
Mine always did.
I mean, currently now. in our
Kenny's does, Kara? Quarterly.
Quarterly?
Yep.
And then do
Whatever
they,
works for
like,
the
how
board.
does their information get to you?
It doesn't, those are building level, yeah, those are, that's the, you know, hey, there's a problem with the way the, Kingsford, for example, they might talk about issues related to student drop-off. Sometimes that funnels, well, oftentimes it funnels to us. But those are building-specific issues. The issues at the buildings don't feed the district committee. The district committee is a larger scale and more comprehensive than that.
Any other items from the board?
So just a quick question. So in regards to the capital budget presentation, if we
Yeah.
have questions regarding that, do we just see you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or-
Yep, just email or call me or Nancy and, yep.
Okay, I have some few questions.
Okay.
Just
Sure.
for understanding.
Yep. No problem.
And I think following up what you just said, and I was going to bring this up before, I know I had asked in a previous board meeting that for your superintendent reports, if we could get this prior to the actual meeting so that we could, I guess,
Yeah.
formulate questions before so that when you're doing the presentation, it's not the first time we're seeing it and we can engage in some sort of
Yeah, we
dialogue.
have talked about that before. It's challenging sometimes to get a PowerPoint together and delivered to the board in advance of a presentation because it's our daily work. It's the stuff that we're working on all the time. We put some finishing touches on this PowerPoint this afternoon. I hear what you're saying. I'm not opposed to doing it, but sometimes it's difficult. I think when we have it done in advance, we can email it to you quick in advance. The other problem with generating a PowerPoint or distributing a PowerPoint in advance is people are focused on the questions that they might want to ask because they've already read the PowerPoint and they're not listening to the message because the PowerPoint is simply an outline of the things that I talk about. But we will make every attempt to get those PowerPoints to you in advance if we can.
I'm sorry, Tom, did you have?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say was kind of fishtail onto the budget and the talk that Dean was, or what Dean was talking about earlier. Amy had asked me because I had gone to that seminar regarding the budget and got quite a bit of information. And I think some of that information we can work in the Community Relations Committee, but also I'll put this together so that the next meeting everybody can have one and take a look at it. The thing that hit me the strongest out of there is when you look around to all the surrounding communities is how underfunded we are as a district, substantially, particularly in the aid portions. You'll look around and some the surrounding communities may be underfunded, some are surplus funded, but we are not substantially. And I know that there's a bunch of things that have to do that regarding us getting our adequate representation. But there's also an advocacy toolkit, and I think that sometimes this action has to get bigger than just us talking in this room, and it has to be a community and a grassroots effort, and also coordinating with all those other districts as well to get to make the noise, to make calls to our representatives so that we're heard down in Albany as just not the usual suspects, but it's more important because it really is vital.
2 years ago, Tom, during that very, very difficult 16-17 budget development, we brought a comprehensive team together of union representation, different bargaining units came together, home and school presidents group that I meet with monthly, and we generated a template letter telling our story to legislatures, and we inundated them with letters through fax and the mail about the plight in Oswego, that the state aid formula is not running. And you're absolutely right. A district like Oswego needs that formula to run because if it ran effectively, they would owe us millions and millions of dollars. However, there are other districts in Oswego County that the formula not running is helpful to them. So they don't want the formula to run. And we're trying so hard to be a cohesive, collaborative team of district chiefs that it's a gentle, delicate balance, but we are always advocating for that. I become less and less hopeful that the budget formula will ever run. But absolutely getting the message out, talking to parents, talking to your support organizations. You folks have Oswego County and New York State School Boards Association. I have NISCUS, we have SANES, we have CSEA, we have NISA, and everyone really is advocating for the need that we have for additional funding in Oswego. And now that we're moving into an era of negotiating the pilots, it becomes more and more important that we do that.
Any other items? At this time, would the board need to move to executive session?
Yes.
Reason?
Personnel. So the board and I are going to move into a very, very brief executive session for me to verbally brief them on something that they got in writing. And then we're going to move directly to the main office, so trust us that we will be brief.
Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Wait, Karen, I also have to make a motion for executive session as well.
Okay, Lisa.
To wrap up the mid-year evaluation with the superintendent.
Could I have a motion, please? Second. I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?